Listen to me. There comes a moment when life will corner you, when everything you thought you could rely on starts to crumble, the job, the money, the relationships, the plan you thought was airtight. And in that moment, the O&L thing left between you and total collapse is faith. Not the kind you read about and nod your head to, not the kind you say you have when things are easy. I'm talking about faith that shakes the ground beneath your fear. Faith that dares you to stand when your legs are ready to give out. If you don't understand this kind of faith yet, stay right here, because what I'm about to tell you might just be the thing that changes everything in your life from this day forward. I'll tell you why faith is not a backup plan. It's not a just-in-case safety net. Faith is the fire that burns in the darkness before you ever see the sunrise. Faith is not waiting for proof. It's stepping forward knowing the proof will meet you halfway. Too many people wait for signs, for guarantees, for the perfect moment. But faith says, go now, move now, speak now. You think you need the door to be open before you walk. Faith kicks the door down. You think you need the path to be clear. Faith walks into the storm. You think you need strength before you fight. Faith is the reason you swing anyway. This kind of faith changes everything because it changes you. It turns the doubter into the doer, the victim into the victor, the fearful into the fearless. And let me tell you, every giant that ever stood in the way of a dream fell to someone who believed before they saw. You want a life that changes. Stop waiting for the world to move first. Stop asking for guarantees. Start moving on what you know in your spirit is possible. Faith that changes everything is not polite, it's not timid, it's not comfortable, it's relentless, it's unshakable, and it's yo-yo-esque if you're willing to grab it and never let go. Today, not tomorrow, is the day you start walking by faith. And when you do, everything else will have no choice but to change. Faith is not some fragile ornament you place on the shelf of your life, only to dust off in moments of crisis. It is not a passive feeling, a soft hope that maybe somehow things will work out if the universe is feeling generous that day. Faith is not weak. It is not timid. Faith is a catalyst, a force that ignites, transforms, and accelerates change in ways nothing else can. When faith enters the equation, it does not simply adjust the outcome. It rewrites the entire script of your life. It has the power to take a person from the ashes of defeat and raise them to a place of victory they never thought they could stand in. Faith doesn't ask for your permission to work. It demands your participation. It's not just about believing in something greater than yourself. It's about allowing that belief to reshape the way you think, speak, and act until the very atmosphere around you begins to shift. The thing about a catalyst is that it doesn't blend in with the environment. It transforms it. Faith is the same way. When you truly carry faith, people notice. It changes your energy, your presence, your decisions. You walk into a room differently. You approach problems differently. You speak with a conviction that cannot be faked. And the reason is simple. Real faith doesn't rely on what you can see with your eyes. Real faith is rooted in something deeper, something immovable, something that refuses to bow to the current reality. It takes the impossible and treats it as a challenge instead of a dead end. Without faith, obstacles look like walls. With faith, obstacles look like doors waiting to be kicked open. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Faith as a catalyst requires action. It's not a magic lamp you rub to get your wishes granted. Faith is a partnership between your belief and your movement. You can't just sit still and expect faith to do all the work for you. Faith needs you to step out, to take that first swing, to move forward even when your legs feel heavy with doubt. The miracle is not in the waiting, it's in the walking. Too many dreams have died because someone was waiting for a sign, when in reality the act of moving forward was the sign they were looking for. Faith says, go now. Even when you don't have it all figured out, think about it. A catalyst doesn't just sit there hoping things will change. It triggers the reaction that creates change. Faith is the trigger. It's what takes an ordinary life and turns it into a life that breaks limits. Without faith, you live in reaction to the world around you. With faith, the world begins to react to you. Suddenly, the same challenges that used to intimidate you become the training grounds for your strength. The same storms that once scared you now become opportunities for you to prove that you can walk on water. The same voices that told you you can't become background noise compared to the roar of conviction in your spirit that says, watch me. And this is why faith is dangerous to fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on the unknown. But faith lives in the same space as uncertainty and turns it into a weapon. It says, I don't need all the answers to move forward. I don't need every detail to be clear. I know something greater than what I see is at work. That's why faith terrifies your doubts, because it keeps moving when logic says stop. It keeps speaking when the world says be quiet. It keeps believing when every piece of evidence says give up. When faith becomes your catalyst, you start to realize that your environment no longer dictates your future. It's not about where you came from, how broken you feel, or how impossible the dream looks. Faith looks at all of that and says, we're still going. It's the audacity to take one more step when the last 100 steps didn't seem to get you anywhere. It's the fire to try again after the failure, not because you're guaranteed success, but because you refuse to let the story end here. And the beautiful thing is, when you carry that kind of faith, people around you start to change too. Your courage becomes contagious. Your perseverance inspires movement in others. Your vision sparks vision in those who have forgotten how to dream. There's a reason people who live by faith often end up defying expectations, because they are no longer powered by the limitations of the flesh, but by the limitless capacity of what they believe is possible. Faith is the difference between someone who looks at a mountain and walks away, and someone who looks at a mountain and starts climbing with a smile, knowing that reaching the top is just a matter of time. It doesn't make the climb easy, but it makes the climb inevitable. Faith changes your relationship with struggle. It changes your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing failure as the end, you start to see it as part of the process, part of the refining fire that shapes you for the victory ahead. If you want to understand how faith changes everything, picture a match being struck in a dark cave. Before that match, the darkness was all you knew. You couldn't see where to go, you couldn't see what was around you, and fear had complete control. But the moment that flame appears, everything changes. The darkness doesn't vanish entirely, but now you can see just enough to move forward. That's faith. It doesn't always remove every challenge instantly, but it gives you the light to take the next step. And with every step you take, the light grows, the path opens, and what seemed impossible begins to unfold before your eyes. And make no mistake, carrying this kind of faith will require you to confront yourself. It will strip away your excuses. It will force you to admit when you've been living small, thinking small, speaking small. Faith will not allow you to keep talking about change without committing to it. It will push you to the edge of your comfort zone and dare you to jump. And when you do, you'll find that the very thing you were afraid of was the thing you needed to unleash the next level of your life. This is why faith is the ultimate catalyst. It doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you, and when you change, everything around you is forced to respond. You stop waiting for the perfect timing because you understand that faith makes timing irrelevant. You stop looking for permission because faith has already given you the authority to move. And you stop fearing failure because faith assures you that no matter what happens, the story isn't over until you win. Faith doesn't just give you hope, it gives you motion. It doesn't just inspire you, it propels you. And once you've experienced what it's like to have faith as your driving force, you'll never go back to living without it. Because when you live with faith as your catalyst, you don't just survive life, you transform it. Faith in action is where belief stops being a concept and starts becoming a force that shapes reality. It's easy to talk about what you believe. It's easy to nod in agreement when someone speaks of hope, of dreams, of vision. But words without movement are empty shells, fragile and hollow. Faith was never meant to be something you simply carry in your mind or store in your heart. It was meant to be lived, breathed, walked, fought for, and put on display in the way you live your life. Faith in action is the moment you decide that your conviction is worth more than your comfort, that your belief is worth more than the approval of others, and that your vision is worth more than the safety of staying still. When faith becomes active, it demands risk. It calls you to step into territory you've never walked before. It asks you to speak when silence would be easier. It pushes you to move when logic tells you to wait. The power of faith is never fully seen until it is tested in motion. A boat sitting in the harbor may be beautiful, but it was not built to stay tied to the dock. It was built to move, to brave the waves, to face the storms, and to reach distant shores. In the same way, faith was never meant to remain anchored in a place of safety. It was designed to take you into the unknown, where only those who dare to act on what they believe will discover the depths of their own potential. Too many people mistake agreement for action. They hear a message about believing in themselves. They feel inspired for a moment, and then they go back to the same patterns that have kept them stuck. But faith is not simply agreeing that change is possible. Faith is doing something today that brings that change closer, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels small, even if it costs you something you'd rather hold on to. Every act of faith is a seed, and seeds don't grow while they sit in your hand. They have to be placed in the soil, buried in a place where you can't see them, and trusted to grow into something bigger than what you started with. Faith in action will make you uncomfortable. It will force you to take steps that expose you to criticism, to rejection, and to the possibility of failure. And that's exactly why so many people hesitate to act. They want the reward of faith without the risk of it. But the truth is, there is no such thing as faith. If you can see the entire path, if you can control every outcome, if you can guarantee every result, then you don't have faith, you have a plan. Faith is different. Faith says, I don't see how this will work yet, but I'm going to move anyway. And when you move on that kind of conviction, you step into a realm where the impossible becomes possible. Action transforms belief from theory into testimony. Anyone can talk about how they believe they can run a race, but only those who step onto the track, sweat in the heat, and push past the pain can truly say they've done it. Faith works the same way. You can say you believe in your calling, in your dream, in your purpose, but if your daily choices don't reflect that belief, then your faith remains trapped in potential. Potential alone will never change your life. Action will. You will never see the fullness of what faith can do until you are willing to put yourself in positions where failure is possible but movement is necessary. Faith in action is often misunderstood as reckless behavior, but in reality, it's the most calculated and powerful move you can make. You're not acting blindly, you're acting on a vision that is invisible to the eyes, but undeniable to the spirit. You're stepping forward because something inside you knows that the next step will appear only after you take the first one. That's the paradox of faith. The path is revealed by walking it. You can stand at the starting line forever waiting for clarity, but clarity is a gift given to those who choose to move first. And when you move, something extraordinary happens. The doors that seemed locked begin to open. The opportunities that seemed out of reach begin to come closer. The people you need to meet begin to cross your path. But none of that happens until you take action. Faith without action is like having a key, but never putting it in the lock. You can hold it, admire it, talk about it, but it will never open the door until you use it. Action also has a way of silencing fear. Fear thrives in the space between thought and movement. It grows in hesitation, in waiting, in overthinking. But the moment you act, you weaken fear's hold on you. Fear is loud until you move. Once you take that step, the noise begins to fade, and you start to realize that the monsters you imagined were far smaller than you thought. Faith in action builds momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Once you start, it becomes harder to stop. Each small victory feeds your confidence, and that confidence fuels bigger steps until suddenly you are living in a reality you once only dreamed about. Faith in action also reshapes the way you see obstacles. When you're sitting still, an obstacle looks like a wall. When you're moving, that same obstacle looks like a challenge to navigate, climb, or break through. Movement changes perspective. You stop asking, can I do this? And start asking, how will I do this? That shift alone can change the outcome of your entire journey. The person who refuses to act spends their life calculating the risk of failure, while the person who acts discovers the path to success through doing. The most life-changing moments you will ever experience will come on the other side of a decision to move. They will happen when you step onto the stage despite your trembling hands, when you apply for the position you don't feel ready for, when you make the call you've been avoiding, when you take the first step toward a dream that scares you. These are the moments that define you, because they prove that your faith is not just an idea, it's a living force. And here's the truth. The world doesn't change because people believe quietly. It changes because people act boldly. History is written by those who did more than talk about their convictions. They embodied them. They were willing to risk being misunderstood, to endure the sting of failure, to keep moving when no one else believed. That is the essence of faith in action. It's not about waiting for a perfect plan. It's about committing to a powerful vision and refusing to stand still until it comes to life. The moment you decide to put your faith into motion is the moment your life begins to change. Every excuse you've held on to, every reason you've given yourself for waiting, every fear that has whispered, not yet, all of it begins to lose its grip the moment you take that first step. You don't have to know the entire journey. You don't have to see the whole picture. You just have to decide that what you believe is worth moving for. And when you do, you'll discover that the act of moving in faith doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. It shapes you into a person who is no longer content to dream from the sidelines, but determined to run headfirst into the life you were created to live. Faith over fear is not a slogan, it's a battle stance. It's the decision you make in the quiet moments when your mind is at war, when the unknown looms large, and fear tries to tighten its grip around your heart. Fear is a master of disguise. It pretends to protect you, whispering reasons to wait, to retreat, to stay small. It tells you it's better to be safe than sorry, better to keep what you have than risk losing it, better to live in the shadow than step into the light. But faith speaks a different language. Faith doesn't promise safety, it promises purpose. Faith doesn't eliminate the storm, it empowers you to walk through it. Faith over fear is not the absence of fear, it's the choice to move forward despite it. Fear is a reaction, faith is a decision. Fear waits for circumstances to dictate its next move, while faith sets the direction before the circumstances even change. When you live by fear, you become a prisoner to what could go wrong. When you live by faith, you become free to pursue what could go right. And here's the truth, both fear and faith are asking you to believe in something you cannot see. Fear asks you to believe in failure before it happens. Faith asks you to believe in victory before it arrives. The difference is that fear drains you while faith fuels you. Fear is loud in stillness, but it loses power in motion. The moment you take a step in faith, fear has to adjust. It can no longer threaten you with the unknown because you're already in it. Fear thrives on hesitation, on the gap between intention and action. But when you close that gap, when you move before fear can talk you out of it, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. This is why faith over fear is so powerful. It teaches you to value movement over comfort, progress over perfection, obedience over convenience. Faith over fear is not naive. It doesn't ignore the reality of challenges, danger, or pain. It simply chooses to believe that those things are not the final word. Fear tells you the mountain is too high. Faith tells you the climb will make you stronger. Fear tells you the risk is too great. Faith tells you the reward is worth it. Fear magnifies the obstacle. Faith magnifies the possibility. And when you choose faith over fear consistently, your perspective begins to shift. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I succeed? You stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I can if I'm willing to try. The interesting thing about fear is that it often disguises itself as logic. It will give you perfectly reasonable explanations for why you shouldn't move forward. It will point to past failures, lack of resources, the opinions of others, and even your own insecurities. It will tell you to wait until the timing is better, until you feel more confident, until you have more certainty. But faith knows the timing will never feel perfect. Confidence is built after you start, not before. Certainty is rare, but courage is always available to those who choose it. Faith over fear is not about waiting for the right conditions. It's about creating the right conditions by stepping out. When you choose faith over fear, you reclaim your authority over your own life. Fear wants to be the decision maker. It wants to dictate where you go, who you meet, what you try, and how far you dream. It wants you to shrink your goals to fit your comfort zone. Faith tears that control away and hands it back to you. It says you get to decide, not your fear. And the moment you start making decisions based on faith instead of fear, everything changes. You begin to take opportunities that once felt too risky. You begin to speak with a voice that once felt too small. You begin to walk into rooms you once thought were too big for you. Faith over fear doesn't mean you'll never feel afraid again. In fact, fear might still show up, but it will no longer have the same power over you. You'll recognize it as a signal, not a stop sign. Fear can become an indicator that you're moving in the right direction, towards something that matters, towards something that will stretch you, towards something that has the power to transform you. And once you see fear that way, you stop running from it and start running through it. One of the most liberating truths you can embrace is that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. And mastery doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your steps. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're training yourself. You're building resilience, discipline, and confidence. You're proving to yourself that fear's predictions are not facts. You're rewriting the narrative in your own mind. And over time, fear's voice grows quieter while your faith's voice grows stronger. Faith over fear creates momentum, and momentum is hard to stop. That first leap of faith might feel terrifying, but once you land and realize you survived, maybe even thrived, it becomes easier to take the next leap. Fear loses credibility when you start stacking victories against it. The same fear that once held you back starts to look small compared to the battles you've already won. And the more you win, the more you believe you can win again. But here's the thing, choosing faith over fear is a daily decision. It's not something you do once and forget. Every new challenge will present you with the same choice. Every big dream will come with its own set of doubts and dangers. Every opportunity will bring both risk and reward. And in each moment, you will have to decide which voice you will follow. Will you bow to fear's demand for safety, or will you rise to faith's call for purpose? The life you want, the impact you dream of making, will always live on the other side of that decision. Faith over fear will change the way you live because it changes the way you think. It makes you bolder in your choices, more intentional in your actions, and more resilient in your setbacks. It teaches you to see the bigger picture, to understand that fear is temporary but regret is permanent. You can survive the sting of failure. You cannot survive the weight of a life never truly lived. Faith over fear reminds you that your time is too valuable, your purpose too important, and your potential too great to let fear dictate the terms of your existence. When you choose faith over fear, you step into a life where the impossible becomes negotiable. You find yourself doing things you once swore you could never do, not because the fear disappeared, but because you stopped letting it decide for you. That's the power of faith. It doesn't just help you win battles, it helps you win the war for your own destiny. And once you've experienced that kind of victory, you'll never want to go back to living under fear's shadow. You'll understand that fear may knock on your door every day, but faith gives you the choice to never let it inside. Faith that demands change is not a gentle suggestion. It is not a polite whisper in the background of your life. It is a force that refuses to leave things as they are. Real faith is disruptive. It will shake you out of your patterns, strip away your excuses, and confront every limitation you've learned to live with. It does not enter your life to blend in. It enters to take over. Faith that demands change will not allow you to keep the same habits, the same mindset, or the same comfort zones. It will challenge you to step into a version of yourself that your current life may not be ready for, but your destiny requires. When this kind of faith grips you, you can't pretend not to know better. You can't go back to being the same person you were before it took root inside you, because it keeps calling you forward, away from the safe and predictable, into the unknown where growth happens. Change is never comfortable, and that is why so many avoid it. We cling to what's familiar because it feels safe, even when it's keeping us stuck. Faith that demands change will destroy that false safety. It will expose the cost of staying the same. It will show you that the pain of growth is far less than the pain of regret. This kind of faith will make you restless in mediocrity. It will make you dissatisfied with the version of life you've been tolerating. It will ignite a hunger for more, not in a greedy sense, but in a purposeful one. You will no longer be able to look at your potential and be content with it lying dormant. You will feel an urgency to act, to move, to transform, because you'll know deep down that what's ahead of you is far greater than what's behind you. Faith that demands change does not just challenge your comfort, it challenges your identity. It asks you, who do you really believe you are? It forces you to confront the labels you've worn, the limitations you've accepted, and the stories you've told yourself about what you can or cannot do. It calls out the fear that has been disguising itself as humility. It confronts the laziness you've been calling patience. It shines a light on every area of your life where you've been shrinking back instead of stepping up. This kind of faith is relentless. It keeps pressing you until you either break through or back away, and once you've tasted it, backing away will no longer be an option you can live with. When faith demands change, it will often lead you into situations that reveal how much you've been holding back. It will bring you face to face with challenges you once thought were impossible, not to crush you, but to prove to you how much you're capable of when you stop settling. Every trial becomes a mirror, showing you who you are and who you could be if you let go of the fear of change. And as you take those steps, you begin to realize that change is not a one-time event, it's a continual process. Faith will keep asking more of you, because each level you reach will prepare you for the next one. This is why faith that demands change can feel so uncomfortable. It is never satisfied with where you are. It sees the bigger picture, the higher calling, the greater capacity inside of you, and it will not stop until you see it too. It will push you to develop skills you didn't think you needed, to make sacrifices you didn't think you could handle, and to take risks you didn't think you were ready for. But as you follow that pull, you start to realize that every stretch, every sacrifice, and every step outside your comfort zone is actually preparing you for the life you were meant to live all along. Faith that demands change is dangerous to the life you've built around convenience. It is a threat to your excuses. It is the end of complacency. Once it grabs hold of you, you can no longer use the same reasons for why you can't do something, because faith will expose them as lies. You will no longer be able to hide behind the fear of what others think, because faith will make the voice of your calling louder than the voices of your critics. You will no longer be able to waste time waiting for perfect conditions, because faith will show you that the conditions become perfect the moment you move. The truth is, if your faith does not demand change, it is not real faith, it is a wish. Real faith disrupts you. It pulls you forward before you feel ready. It requires you to make choices that separate you from the crowd, to walk away from the things that no longer serve you, and to step into environments that stretch you beyond what you thought was possible. It demands that you take full responsibility for your life and your growth. It will not let you keep blaming your past, your circumstances, or other people. It tells you, you are capable, you are equipped, Now act like it. And when you respond to that demand, you start to notice that change is not just happening around you, it's happening inside you. You think differently, you speak differently, you carry yourself differently. You begin to value growth over comfort, truth over popularity, purpose over ease. You no longer make decisions based on fear of loss, but on vision for gain. Your faith becomes a filter for every choice you make, and as a result, your life starts aligning with the future you've been called to, rather than the past you've been clinging to. This kind of faith will also demand that you let go of things you've outgrown. That's not easy. Sometimes the hardest part of change is not embracing the new, but releasing the old. Faith will tell you to walk away from relationships that drain you, environments that stunt you, and habits that weaken you. It will tell you to close doors that lead nowhere, even if they are comfortable. It will require you to trust that letting go of the familiar is the only way to make space for the extraordinary. And in that process, you will learn that faith does not just demand change for the sake of change. It demands change because it knows you cannot step into your future while holding on to everything from your past. Faith that demands change will not always make you popular because it will put you on a path that many are too afraid to take. People may not understand why you are making certain decisions, why you are leaving certain situations, or why you are pushing yourself so hard. But faith is not about being understood. It's about being obedient to the pull inside you that says you were made for more. It's about living a life that will not only inspire others, but also honor the purpose you were created for. The beauty of faith that demands change is that over time you begin to see the results. You start to realize that every uncomfortable step was worth it. The risks you took begin to pay off. The sacrifices you made begin to bear fruit. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to feel alive in a way that playing it safe could never give you. You discover that the process of becoming who you were meant to be is far more fulfilling than staying who you were told to be. That is the gift of faith that demands change. It not only transforms your circumstances, but transforms you into the kind of person who can handle the life you've been dreaming of. And once you've experienced that, you will never again settle for a life that asks nothing of you. Faith in the unseen is one of the most powerful and challenging forces you will ever experience. It is the decision to believe in something you cannot yet touch, measure, or prove. It is the choice to build a life based on what you know deep in your spirit, rather than what you can confirm with your senses. The unseen can feel like a dangerous place because it offers no guarantees you can see with your eyes. There is no visible proof, no solid evidence, nothing you can hold in your hand to calm the uncertainty. And yet, that is where the greatest breakthroughs are born. Faith in the unseen is not about ignoring reality. It is about trusting that there is a greater reality at work, one that exists beyond what you can currently perceive. Most people are comfortable putting their trust in what they can see. They want to see the finished plan before they take the first step. They want to hold the reward before they commit to the work. They want the map before they begin the journey. But faith in the unseen works in the opposite way. It asks you to move first, to commit first, to trust first. It demands that you step onto the path before you can see where it ends. That is why it's so difficult for many, because the unseen requires you to give up control over the details and lean completely on your conviction. The unseen is where fear and faith collide. Fear tells you that what you cannot see will hurt you. Faith tells you that what you cannot see will help you. Fear fills the unseen with shadows, danger, and loss. Faith fills it with opportunity, possibility, and miracles waiting to happen. The difference between the two is not in the reality itself, but in your perspective. Faith in the unseen shifts the way you interpret the unknown. It teaches you to see potential where others see risk, to find hope where others find doubt, to see doors where others see walls. When you put your faith in the unseen, you begin to understand that your current reality is not the full picture. What you see right now is temporary, but what is unseen is still unfolding. It's like a seed planted in the ground. You can't see it growing, but you know that something is happening beneath the surface. Every day you water it, every day you protect it, even though there's no visible evidence that it's working. And then one day, without warning, it breaks through the soil. That's how faith in the unseen works. You trust the process even when you can't track the progress. This kind of faith requires patience. It asks you to keep moving forward even when nothing appears to be changing. It asks you to hold on when the evidence says let go. It asks you to speak life into a dream that still looks dead. And that is where many people give up, not because the dream wasn't real, but because they couldn't stand living in the gap between the promise and the proof. Faith in the unseen is about surviving that gap. It's about enduring the silence, holding steady in the waiting, and believing in the harvest before you see the first sprout. Faith in the unseen also changes the way you act. You start making decisions not based on where you are, but on where you believe you are going. You start walking as if the outcome is already certain. You start speaking as if the promise is already fulfilled. This is not about denial, it's about alignment. Your actions begin to align with the reality you believe in even before it manifests. That alignment is what draws the unseen into the seen. The more you act according to your faith, the more your external world begins to reflect your internal conviction. One of the hardest parts of trusting in the unseen is ignoring the noise of those who can't see what you see. People will doubt you because they can only judge based on what's in front of them. They will tell you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to stop chasing something that hasn't shown itself. But they are only speaking from their perspective, and their perspective is limited to the visible. Faith in the unseen means that you refuse to be limited by that same boundary. You know that vision is a gift not everyone has, and it's your responsibility to guard it. Faith in the unseen is not reckless hope. It's not wishful thinking. It is deeply rooted in the belief that the unseen is just as real as the seen, that there are forces at work beyond your understanding, that your life has a trajectory even if you can't trace it yet. It's knowing that every step you take is not wasted, even if you can't see the result immediately. It's understanding that sometimes the most important progress happens out of sight, in the hidden places, in the quiet seasons when nothing seems to be moving. And here's the truth: the unseen is where transformation begins. By the time something shows up in your life physically, it has already been forming in the unseen for a while. The victory is decided before the battle is fought. The opportunity is prepared before you ever hear about it. The answers are on their way before you even realize you need them. When you have faith in the unseen, you begin to live with a confidence that nothing is wasted, nothing is random, and nothing is beyond redemption. This kind of faith will teach you to trust timing that isn't yours. It will show you that what you think is a delay is actually preparation. It will reveal that what you think is rejection is actually redirection. It will make you see that what you thought was the end was just a pause before a greater beginning. The unseen is where the most significant parts of your journey are written, and faith is the only way to access them. Without it, you will keep judging your future by what your eyes can see in the present, and you will miss the miracles unfolding behind the curtain. Faith in the unseen also sharpens your resilience. When you can believe without seeing, you can endure without giving up. You stop quitting every time circumstances turn against you. You stop being swayed by temporary setbacks because you understand they don't define the final outcome. You develop a steadiness that other people notice, a quiet confidence that says, I know something you don't know. And that's exactly what it is. You know that the unseen is not empty, it's full. Full of answers, full of possibilities, full of the future you're walking toward. Living with faith in the unseen will not always be easy. There will be days when you question everything, when the silence feels too long, when the weight feels too heavy. But those are the moments when your faith is growing the most. It's easy to believe when the evidence is right in front of you. It's harder to believe when all you have is the promise and your own conviction. But that's what makes faith in the unseen so powerful. It is forged in the very moments when it would be easiest to let go. And once you've walked through that kind of season and seen the unseen finally become reality, you will never again doubt its power. You will know that the unseen is not a void to be feared, but a treasure to be trusted.